Welcome back to the deep dive. We're going to dive into a whole bunch of crazy cybersecurity stuff today. Like, did you know somebody hacked a computer with a BBQ lighter?
Yeah, it sounds crazy, but it just goes to show you how unpredictable this stuff can be.
No kidding. I mean, how does that even work?
So they're using electromagnetic interference, or EMI. Basically, the spark from the lighter creates this burst of energy that messes with the laptop's memory. It's like, imagine trying to have a conversation standing next to a jet engine. That's basically what that lighter is doing to the computer.
Oh, wow. Okay. That is wild. And a little terrifying, to be honest.
It definitely makes you think, right?
Speaking of things that make you think, let's talk about this election interference stuff.
Yeah.
This whole thing with the hacker selling North Carolina election data is pretty unsettling.
Yeah, that's a worrying development for sure. We're talking about a huge amount of data here. This could be used for all sorts of bad stuff.
Like what could someone actually do with that information?
Well, they could spread misinformation, manipulate voters, maybe even sow some discord and distrust in the entire electoral process.
So it's not just about hacking voting machines anymore.
Not at all. It's about manipulating the information that voters rely on.
Which is actually even scarier when you think about it.
It definitely raises the stakes.
Okay, so we've got hackers using BBQ lighters, we've got election interference. And if that wasn't enough to keep you up at night, there's also the never-ending story of healthcare data breaches.
Right, those are unfortunately becoming all too common. We saw those two big breaches recently, Griffin Healthcare and Tri-City Medical Center.
Yeah, over 500,000 people affected. It's crazy. But why healthcare? Why is it such a big target for these cyber criminals?
Well, think about it. Medical data is extremely valuable. Social security numbers, health histories, treatment information, all that stuff is way more valuable to a cyber criminal than your credit card number. And on top of that, healthcare systems are notoriously complex, which just means more vulnerabilities for hackers to exploit.
So it's not even just about stealing the data. It's about ransom demands, identity theft, blackmail. This stuff has real-world consequences.
Absolutely. It can be devastating. Just imagine getting a call from your doctor's office saying your medical records have been compromised. That's a deeply personal violation.
That's terrifying.
And it's a good reminder that cybersecurity is about protecting people, not just data.
So how do we do that? How do we protect ourselves, especially when it comes to something as personal as our health information?
Well, it's a multifaceted problem, so there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Of course, but every little bit helps, right?
Absolutely. So let's switch gears for a second and talk about something a little more lighthearted. Vacations.
Vacations, sun, sand, and cyber scams. Wait, what?
Yeah, unfortunately, cyber criminals are targeting people booking travel on sites like Booking.com and Airbnb these days.
Seriously?
Yeah, they've got this toolkit called Telekai that they use to steal your payment info.
So wait, I'm just trying to book a relaxing getaway, and suddenly I'm a target for scammers. How does that even work?
Well, these scammers are pretty clever. They know people are excited about their trips and maybe not paying as much attention to details, so they'll hijack the account of a real accommodation provider. You know, like a host on Airbnb.
Okay.
And then they'll send these phishing messages to people who've made bookings through that account.
Phishing messages like those fake emails trying to get your password.
Exactly. But these messages look super convincing. They might use real booking information to trick you. Like, they might mention your arrival date or the name of the place you booked.
Sneaky. So what do they want? What are they trying to get you to do?
They might ask you to reconfirm your payment details, for example, or say there's been a problem with your reservation and ask you to update something.
Oh, I can see how people fall for that. You're already stressed about your trip, and then you get this message saying something's wrong.
Exactly. They play on that sense of urgency.
Wow. So it's not just individual scammers we have to worry about these days, right? We've also got those nation-state actors causing trouble. I read something about vulnerabilities in EV chargers being exploited.
Yeah. It's a serious issue, and it's not just EV chargers. We're talking about vulnerabilities in all sorts of critical infrastructure.
Critical infrastructure, like what?
Right, think about the power grid, transportation systems, communication networks, all the things that keep our society running smoothly. If those systems are disrupted, it can have a huge impact on our daily lives.
No kidding. So why target EV chargers specifically?
Well, as we transition to electric vehicles, disrupting that infrastructure could cause widespread chaos. Plus, it plays into a larger strategy of undermining trust in these new technologies.
So it's not just about the immediate damage, it's about the long-term implications as well.
Right, and this is where those nation-state actors come in. They have the resources and the motivation to carry out these kinds of sophisticated attacks.
What about the software side of things? We've heard reports about vulnerabilities in Ivanti and Fortinet, which are used by tons of companies. How big of a deal are those vulnerabilities?
Those are definitely concerning. We're talking about software that's used to manage entire IT systems. If those systems are compromised, attackers can gain access to a wealth of sensitive data.
So what can we do about it? It feels like we're constantly playing catch up with these cyber criminals.
Yeah.
They're always one step ahead.
Well, awareness is key. Just knowing about these threats can make a big difference. Like take that telecopy toolkit we talked about.
Yeah.
Just being aware that this toolkit exists and how it works can make you more cautious about suspicious messages related to your travel bookings.
So knowledge is power.
Exactly. And on a practical level, always use strong, unique passwords for your online accounts and enable two-factor authentication whenever possible.
Two-factor authentication, that's where they send you a code to your phone.
Right. It adds an extra layer of security, which can be a real lifesaver.
Good to know.
And beyond that, be wary of any messages that seem suspicious or create a sense of urgency.
Like those emails that say your account is about to be suspended unless you click on this link right now.
Exactly. If something feels off, trust your gut and contact the company directly.
Don't click the link, no matter how tempting it might seem.
Exactly. And while individual vigilance is important, we also need a collective effort to improve cybersecurity. Developers need to build more secure software, organizations need to patch vulnerabilities quickly, and governments need to put in place stronger regulations.
It's a team effort.
Absolutely. But there's one crucial element that often gets overlooked in all of this: the human element. Even with the best technology in place, human error can still create vulnerabilities.
Oh, so you're saying we're all part of the problem, but also part of the solution.
That's a great way to put it.
So you're saying we need to invest in people as much as we invest in technology.
Exactly. We need to move beyond the idea that cybersecurity is just an IT problem. It's everyone's responsibility.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What are some common mistakes that organizations make after a breach, and how can they do better?
Well, a big one is focusing too much on the technical stuff and not enough on the human factors that contributed to the breach.
So, like, they're so busy patching the hole in the fence that they don't realize someone left the gate open in the first place.
That's a great way to put it. It's crucial to do a thorough analysis after a breach to understand not just what happened, but why it happened.
Okay, so what kind of things are we talking about here? Give me some examples.
Sure. It could be anything from inadequate employee training to a culture where people are afraid to speak up if they see something suspicious. Sometimes it's as simple as employees not understanding the importance of strong passwords.
So it's about creating a culture of awareness and empowerment, right?
Absolutely. It's about making sure everyone understands the role they play in cybersecurity and feels comfortable reporting potential threats.
And that takes training.
It does, and not just one-time training sessions. It needs to be ongoing and engaging.
So no more boring PowerPoint presentations about cybersecurity best practices.
Hopefully not. The more we can make cybersecurity relevant to people's everyday lives, the more likely they are to take it seriously.
Makes sense. So ongoing training, fostering that culture of awareness. What else?
Having a clear incident response plan is crucial so that everyone knows what to do if a breach does occur.
So you're not scrambling around trying to figure out what to do in the middle of a crisis.
Exactly. Having a plan helps you minimize the damage and recover more quickly.
Solid advice. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about everything from hackers using BBQ lighters to the importance of employee training and the DoD's new cybersecurity standards. It's a lot to take in. What's the one thing you want our listeners to remember from this deep dive?
I think the most important takeaway is that cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. We all have a role to play in creating a safer digital world.
And it starts with being aware of the threats and taking steps to protect ourselves and our organizations.
Absolutely. Stay informed, be vigilant, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Great advice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of cybersecurity. It's been enlightening, if little unnerving at times.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.